All right, everybody, thanks for being here today. I'm Heather Roxburgh, and I'm here with my partner, Kat, with Be Epic Marketing. And we're really excited to have my very dear friend, Aaron West, on the call today to share his passion for wealth and teach us a few things about money. Many of you on here know who Aaron is, but I'm just going to give him a really quick introduction. Aaron's been in the business for about 18 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry. Aaron's been in the business for about 18 years and he's had a team for 8. He has been out of production for 2.5 years. And I think that's changed his life and actually helped him really grow his business and dive into some other things. He's from Modesto, California, and his team is number 5 in median teams for the state of California. So they do a big business and a really amazing business. And just, I wanted to have Aaron on here today. I was fortunate to be with him back in actually it was during COVID, and we were down in Scottsdale with a small group of our friends, and we were drinking wine around a fireplace one night, and Aaron said, hey, he started talking about money, and he said, so Heather, what's your net worth? And he totally took me back, and I was like, what? And all these people are with a big, huge group, and I'm like, what's my net worth? And I had to really think about it. And I actually thought, I don't know. And how do I not know this? Like, I'm very much budget oriented and I'm pretty savvy with money. And I went home and I said, I'm going to figure it out because I actually don't know. And went home and I was shocked when I actually did the work and added up the numbers. And then it really made me think about my future. So that day literally changed my life completely. And the way I think about money and the way I invest has changed since that day. So Aaron, I'm going to let you share a little bit more about what got you passionate about money and take it from here. So.
Well, thank you so much, Heather and Kat, for having me on. It is truly one of my passions, and I've been put and been able to be in the unique position of being able to hang around and talk to a lot of people who have built massive wealth, not just wealthy, they've built riches. And, talking to this group of people, and I know a good number of you, I was scrolling through and I know a good number of you people, and there's a pretty wide range anytime you get on this call of people and where they are in their wealth journey. And so what my hope is that when we have this conversation, that you're able to recognize where you are in your wealth building journey, and then also understand some of the lessons that you have either gone through and maybe not even recognized, or that you are going to have to go through to be able to build wealth. I'm in a mastermind called GoBundance. It is a mastermind for entrepreneurs and business owners. They have to have a minimum net worth of a couple of $1 million to be in this group so that they're all having the conversations. And I've been fortunate enough to be the host of a show called 728 with one of my very good friends, Daniel Del Real. And the premise of this show is that we interview entrepreneurs who have gone from a net worth that's 7 to 8. So it's a net worth of $1 million to at least $10 million. And we've interviewed people in the hundreds of $1 million, $500 million, and a couple of billionaires during this show. Matter of fact, Thursday, we're interviewing someone who's worth, I think he's $225 million now is where his net worth is. But what we really focus on is the hunt, because once you get to a certain point, money has a momentum of its own and it continues to just build if you've done the right things. But when you hear people's stories, when you're on Instagram or you go to the third podcast and those kinds of things, they don't really talk about what they actually went through to build wealth. They kind of glaze on that and then they go to the glamour. So what we've done is we've really taken the time to figure out what the things that they had to do to build the wealth that they have today. And we found that there were 7 lessons that virtually every single one of them went through in one way or another, and sometimes many times over, as they went on this wealth journey. So we're going to talk about those things and figure out, hopefully you can take a look and see where you are and see where there's the opportunity to create a better version of yourself. So before we start that, I'd like to do a little exercise. And I want you to pretend for just a minute that you won the lottery. All right. So you got the door knock, and Publishers Clearinghouse knocks on the door, and they said, you just won $1 million. What are you going to do with that money? So this is a small enough group to where I wouldn't mind hearing some people just either type up what they would do with the money, or if you want to just unmute and say what you would do with the money. I would love to hear what you would do with $1 million. And since we're talking about wealth, investing all of it is not an option, because that's a lie. You wouldn't do that if you haven't done that yet. So, and I'll just give some options. I see: buy farmland, buy a vacation lake house, buy real estate by the beach. I love all of those things. Buy land, buy multifamily. So how many people here would fall into this category right here? Hire a professional chef. I love that one. Because people typically have two relationships with money, and there's a range that you fall into. So it's not necessarily you're all one or you're all other, but most of us have a tendency to be, first, let's call it a spender. So how many people here would invest some of it, and then the rest of it, they would go on vacations, they'd buy nice clothes, they'd spend it on their family? I see Claim It with my 2 sons. They'd buy a nice car, they'd buy jewelry, they would reward themselves with it. So how many people in this group would do that? Just type in a 1 if you find yourself leaning more towards that side of things. And truthfully, in real estate, most of us are a lot of 1s. The other side of it is the saver. Now, the saver is they're going to put it someplace safe, in a savings account, bonds, under their mattress, in a safe, because to a saver, money means security. To a spender, money means experiences. So how many people would relate to that money means experiences to them? It doesn't necessarily mean safety. And the difference between the two are that they both have relationships. They're both fear-based relationships. Spenders are actually afraid of having money, and savers are afraid of losing money. That stability of money is very, very important to them. Whereas spenders, they work best with their back against the wall. And as soon as they're out of money, they just know they got to work hard again, and they get money again to be able to go do the other thing. I see some people are kind of resonating with both, and that's normal too in different areas of your life. So I'd like to twist this just a little bit and give you a different scenario. Okay, so everybody on this call, I want you to close your eyes for just a second. Close your eyes, come to kind of a calm place, and I want you to imagine this. I want you to picture your best friend in the world. Okay. Now I want you to imagine that person comes to you and they say, I have bad news. I just found out that I have stage 4 cancer, and I am not long in this world anymore. But I have a $1 million life insurance policy, and I want you to take care of that $1 million for my 4-year-old. And when she turns 18 years old, I want you to give her that money that you've taken care of for me for the 12 years. Okay, open your eyes. How many of you would treat that money differently than the $1 million that you won in the lottery? Type in 1 if you would treat that money differently. Pretty much everybody. So why is there a difference? What is the difference? It's both $1 million, correct? The difference is this. It's ownership versus stewardship. When someone gives us $1 million, we take ownership of it. And yet, when we're entrusted with money, we have stewardship of it. And the challenge for most of us, and myself included, to this day, I still am challenged with that, is that we tend to take more ownership of our money than stewardship. When we get a commission check, when we get a paycheck, when we get anything, that money goes into your account, and then you're given free rein to be either a spender or a saver. And because it's yours. It's the reason that the IRS takes your taxes out for those on a W-2, or when you were a W-2, they take your taxes out before you get the check, because they understand that once you get the check, there's very little chance of them being able to get their money. It's the reason that so many real estate agents are behind on their taxes, because as soon as they get a $5,000 or a $10,000 commission check, that's all
And
their money,
I-
and they take it.
So
and
I just
they
kept
own
answering
it.
his questions, I asked him right away if he had a realtor. He said, yeah, dude. So I was just like,
Who's
Fine,
talking?
You're probably,
You know.
thank God.
yeah, I was like, all right, fine.
Joanne. Sorry.
All right. So let me tell you a little bit about my story. Hi, I'm Aaron, and I'm a recovering spender. I'm the oldest of 6 children. I grew up both poor and broke. Poor is a state of account. No, broke is a state of account. Poor is a state of mind. I'm sure you've all heard Brian say that before, and that really resonated with me. And I was both. I didn't know that it wasn't normal to have a kerosene heater in your living room in the wintertime when you had central heating, because you didn't have enough money to pay the gas bill. I didn't know that it wasn't normal that when you got babysat by your friend's parents, that they didn't go out and buy you 4 pairs of brand new shoes for you and your brothers, because your shoes were so worn down and tattered that they took pity on us because we were broke and poor. Now, my dad made good money at times. He was a lifelong entrepreneur and still is, but there's always a place for money to grow. So I grew up never having money, never being comfortable with money, and always finding a place for that to grow. I was just as broke when I started my first career in the jewelry industry, making $13,000 a year, as I was when I was in real estate making $150,000 or $175,000 a year, because there's always a place for money to grow. So my wealth building journey starts with this story right here. And one question, Heather said that one moment of me asking her that question, what is your net worth, was a pivot moment for her. And my pivot moment on my wealth building journey was, I went to a conference, and the speaker at the conference was someone that I admired and was a mentor to me. Not like, you think of Tony Robbins and Zig Ziglar are all mentors, and because they have positively affect your life. And this person was that way for me. So at the end of this conference, I went and found him, and I said, and we were just chatting. And I said, man, I don't know why I can't keep money. I know how to make it, but I can't keep money to save my life. And he asked me this question. He said, Aaron, what was your dad's relationship with money? Now, we had probably a 5-minute conversation after that. I don't remember a word that he said after he asked me that question, because I felt like I got punched in the gut. It was the first time that I understood that I was recreating the patterns that my family had set down for me with their relationship with money. My grandfather wasn't good with money. My grandmother was, but my grandfather was the most influence on me. My dad had a horrible relationship with money. They still rent their house that my brother owns right now, that me and my brother bought, that my brother bought for me. And now my parents live there and rent there. And this was the first lesson for me, is that I had to decide if I was going to relive the patterns that my family had set down for me. And this is lesson number 1 right here. You have to make the choice. And my choice was, am I going to relive those patterns? Or is this going to be my first touch point of not letting my past dictate my future. You know, instead of running from, you start getting pulled towards your future once you have that clarity. And you have the opportunity to use your past as a reference point and not a residence. You have to evict yourself from that residence. You see, savers and spenders both come, like I said before, from a place of fear. And until they understand that and start to use that as a reference point, because savers, you know, you can take my money when you pry it from my cold, dead hands. And the best opportunity in the world could come up. And if it means sacrificing an ounce of the safety that they have with money, they will not do it. And spenders love investing. They're the worst. And I mean, they'll invest in anything. You know, Brian Buffini says, I've never met a piece of real estate that I don't like. And what he's learned to do is to temper that spender and the savers. Now, once you make that commitment and that choice, then you're going to find out about lesson 2, which is where actually most people quit. And that's the struggle you don't expect. You know, Gary Vaynerchuk says this, it's a great quote. The problem is people want to get rich quick, but life is long. And because people want instant gratification, and we live in a world where instant gratification is glorified, and the work leading up to it. I mean, you see Michael Jordan, you don't see the 40,000 hours dropping free throws. You see all of these successful people, but the world focuses on their instant success. And what you have to learn to do is to fall in love with the process and trust that from that process, success and growth will come from it. Cody Sanchez, who is a influencer and entrepreneur that speaks to people about buying businesses, she said that most young entrepreneurs want to do what they love. The pros learn to love what it takes. My friend Daniel Del Real says this is the best version of yourself is the most disciplined version of yourself. So what does success look like? Having been through doing this 728 show and literally interviewing hundreds of millionaires through this process, what we found is that it looks exactly the same every single time. And this is what it looks like. Now, if you look at this, and can you see my my cursor? Yes. Okay. So if you look at this, it wasn't until 2005 that this person got serious about building wealth. But there was no growth really until 2014. And then there's a ton of growth in here. So I picked this particular growth for a graph for a reason, is if you'll notice from 2014, there's a dip. Okay, so that's lesson number 4. But let's talk about lesson number 3, is that learning how to say no to say yes. So with this particular person, and if you go back, I mean, I think it showed him at 35 million. This is 2021, 38. He's almost at 50 million today. So that graph has continued to grow. This plays out in so many areas of our lives, learning to say no to say yes. So for him, he had to learn to stay away from what we all call the shiny object syndrome. And he had a path to wealth, and he got distracted. And he got distracted by something that distracted him for almost 18 months. And because of that, it took away from his wealth building journey. And that's kind of where a saver has to say no to their aversion to risk. And I had to learn how to say no to being the patterns of a spender. So since we're talking about that and spender and saver, how do you do that? You know, and this is where we talk about the stewardship of money again, because here's the truth. If you want to build wealth, it's not your money. That's the secret to building wealth, is that whole stewardship in how you look at money. What I had to do, and I know I have some friends on this call that we've had this conversation and they've heard my story about what I did, but what I had to do to create stewardship for myself, and this works for savers as well, is I had to create a not my money account. And what I did is I committed that no matter what happened in my world, anything that went into that account was not my money. That was for the Aaron that I wanted to be, the Aaron that I had the potential to be, the Aaron that I knew I could be if I was disciplined during this whole process. And for savers, once it's in their savings account and it's called a savings account, it's never getting pulled out for the most part. I mean, there are exceptions, but as a generality, once it goes in, I have a client that I met with like 6 months ago that we were just chatting, and it was the son and the daughter, and the mom had sold a bunch of acreage to build a high school in 99. So this is 24 years ago. They paid her $800,000 for this land in 1999, which is a lot of money. Right now in her bank account, she has $800,000 because she put it into a savings account and it stayed there. Even if she just put it in bonds or in the safest stock investments that you could get, it would be $1.8 million or $2 million over the course of 25 years. And because she's a saver and is so averse to risk, she didn't take stewardship of that money. She still has ownership. And not only is it 800,000, it's worth so much less today than it was then. So you have to learn how to become an inch wide and a mile deep. You have to be so clear about what you want your future to look like that it becomes the filter by which you say no to everything that doesn't serve you. Let me ask you this question. Are your decisions today honoring your future self? Are your decisions today financially honoring the person that you want to be or that you know that you have the potential to become? Because until you learn how to save $1,000, you'll never save 10. And until you learn to save $100, you'll never save 100,000. So the decisions that you make today, the little decisions, are the ones that make the big difference over the long haul. You have to learn how to say no to your patterns so that you can say yes to the opportunities. So a little while ago, I talked about that dip in 2015. And if you look at that dip, I mean, that's a pretty substantial dip. He lost almost $2 million in that dip right there from 2014 to 2015, when most people were doing nothing but making money. And this is lesson number 4. And it is turning failures into successes. You know, one of the most dangerous things you can ask for is wisdom, because wisdom only comes after struggles and failures. I don't know if any of you know who Giannis, I can't even say his last name, Giannis Antetokounmpo. He's one of the best players in the NFL right now. And the last playoff, it was right before I did this for the first time. He was in the playoffs and they lost. And this reporter asked him this question, and his response was absolutely one of the best responses I've ever heard. So we're going to play that and just listen.
Aaron, we can't hear it.
There's
Okay,
no
hold on.
volume.
Let me go to sharing. Sorry, guys. May have to stop share for a second. There it is.
The exact same question, but
Can you hear me,
I'm
hear it
confused.
now?
Do you view this season as a failure?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay, because I'm not that up.
Can you turn it up?
You asked me the same
Yes.
question last year, Eric.
Sorry, all the best played plans of
Okay. Do you get? Do
is
you
that
get
better?
The exact same question, but I'm curious for you. Do you view this season as a failure?
Okay, because I'm not that up. You asked me the same question last year, Eric. Okay, do you get a promotion every year on your job? No, right? So every year you work is a failure. Yes or no? No. Every year you work towards something, towards a goal, right? Which is to get a promotion, to be able to take care of your family, to be able, I don't know, provide the house for them or take care of your parents. You work towards a goal. It's not a failure. It's steps to success, you know. And if you've never, I don't want to make it personal. So there's always steps to it, you know. Michael Jordan played 15 years, won 6 championships. The other 9 years was a failure? That's what you're telling me? No, I'm asking you a question. Yes or no? Okay, exactly. So why you asking me that question? It's a wrong question. There's no failure in sports. You know, there's good days, bad days. Some days you are able to be successful, some days you're not. Some days it's your turn, some days it's not your turn. And that's what sports is about. You don't always win. Some other people's gonna win. And this year, somebody else is gonna win. Simple as that. We're going to come back next year, try to be better, try to build good habits, try to play better, not have a 10-day stretch with playing bad basketball, you know, and hopefully we can win a championship. So 50 years from 1971 to 2021 that we didn't win a championship, it was 50 years of failures? No, it was not. It was steps to it, you know, and we were able to win one. Hopefully we can win another one. You know, sorry that I didn't want to make it personal, because you asked me the same question last year, and last year I was in the right mind space to answer the question back, but I remember it.
So, you know, could you imagine if our kids were taught that in school, that everything growth comes from from failure? You know, Napoleon Hill said this quote: "Every adversity, every failure, every heartache carries with it the seed of equal or greater benefit." I'm going to read that again because it's such a powerful quote. Every adversity, every failure, every heartache carries with it the seed of an equal or greater benefit. We're all going to have them. Every single person that we interviewed, their most pivotal challenges turned into their greatest successes because of how quickly they responded to failure. They had to ask themselves a question: am I going to live in this failure, or how is this failure serving me? You know, Naval Ravikant has this quote, and everybody's heard 10,000 hours is mastery. And Naval Ravikant says this. He says, mastery is not 10,000 hours. Mastery is 10,000 iterations of small improvements. And what
Okay.
I would
And
argue,
also able to eat. You just said some, so
are you talking to me, Temple?
nope.
You know, and I would argue this: mastery is not 10,000 iterations of small improvements. Mastery is 10,000 failures that you learn from. That's what mastery is. So you can't let the failures of your past dictate your future. And what every single one of these guys did is they used that failure as a reference point for the wisdom that they gained from that failure instead of a residence. And the quicker you evict yourself from that residence, the faster that you have the opportunity to achieve mastery. Now, lesson number 5 is a tough one. Did you know that you're a totally different person than you were 7 years ago? And I don't mean that just up here. Literally, your body recreates itself every single year. Virtually every single cell that you had in your body 7 years ago is gone and has been recreated with a new cell, And yet what most people do is that they get to a place that's comfortable and they just live there and keep repeating it their entire lives. They wear their Genius like a warm sweater and they just get super comfortable in it and they just live there. And I came close a couple of times to being that person. And I can tell you a couple different stories of when I was challenged to become different. So in GoBundance, one of the things that they have that I love, and if you've been to, I know some of you did my goal writing course, they have what's called a one sheet. And in that one sheet, it's basically like the baseball card for your life. It has all of your net worth, your income that you make from your job, how much you invest, how much you spend on charity. And then it has all the goals for all of your bucket list, your different buckets of your life, you know, family and friends, business, financial, personal, health, all of those areas. One of my gifts and where I actually have mastery is being able to write really good goals. The challenge with being able to write really good goals is that I'm also really good at writing, and excuse my language, bullshit, really good looking goals. And this was 2015, probably, maybe 2006, maybe 2016. And I was doing my one sheet at this table. And the way that it's set up was when you go to these events, there'll be four other guys sitting at the table with you. So there's 6 people at a table. And you are given 7 minutes to walk through your one sheet and basically talk about all your goals, all of that kind of stuff. And this is what my life looked like at the time. I had a happy marriage. I had kids that were doing great. I just finished my 3rd Ironman. I had one of the top teams in California, and I was a multimillionaire. It was a pretty freaking good life. And when I was going through my one sheet, 2 of the guys, the first 2 guys that gave me feedback were like, man, that's so amazing. I can't figure out how to improve it. Your goals are awesome, all of that. And then Paresh Mehta, who I will be indebted to for the rest of my life. I can't even tell this story without getting emotional sometimes because of how deeply he impacted me. He looked at me and he said, I smell fear in every single one of those goals. And he was right. I did not want to screw my life up because it was going really, really well. And what I was forced to do, because once he called me on that, then I had to either make a decision of being okay with that, or I had to redo my goals and figure out what my life was going to look like. And to this day, every single time I do a goal writing session for myself, there is at least one goal that scares the crap out of me. I've made the commitment that I will no longer float in my life anymore. Now, Paresh also taught me the importance of the next lesson, and that is relationship capital. Do you know what compounds faster than money? Relationships. So let's talk for a second about relationship capital. Ben Stein says this. He says, personal relationships are the fertile soil from which all advancement, all success, all achievement in real life grows. And so I'm going to give you how I grade my friends. And my wife and I have a system to where we have our friends and we don't love any of them any less, but we have them categorized into 5 categories. I had to walk them through in my head. The first, and you all have this friend, is your 5-minute friend. Now, your 5-minute friend is the person that you know from high school or college, or that just got divorced and they are living their best life, but it is not congruent with the life that you want to live. And you love them, but after 5 minutes, nothing good is going to happen. And so after 5 minutes, you need to know that you need to separate yourself from them. The second kind of friend is a 1-hour friend. And that's the friend you see at a party. They're super fun to hang out with for a while, but then as soon as you leave that party, you're like, okay, that's enough. The third is a dinner friend. And this is where a lot of people who are couples, or a lot of people as they get a little bit older, you end up with a lot of dinner friends. And those are good people. You go out, you spend a couple of hours with them. But at the end of the dinner, you're just like, that was a really nice dinner. Let's get back together with them in 6 months or a year. And then we get to where it starts getting good. And those are your weekend friends. Your weekend friends are the people that you go to Napa, or you go to Disneyland with the kids, or you go to the coast and the beach with them for 2 or 3 days. And you're like, man, that was such a great trip with those people. But I couldn't see myself spending a week with them, but they're really high quality and I'd love to do another weekend with them. And then there is this group right here. These are your vacation friends. So we took it, this is actually taken from March of this year. There was 13 couples on an island for 6 days with nobody else there. It was a small resort on an island. And after 6 days of us hanging out with each other 24/7, we asked, who wants to do this next year? And every single one of those people raised their hands. These are the people that I'm going to do life with. So we're going to South America this year. Every single one of these couples, except one, because they had a conflict, are all going down to South America for us to do another trip together because we are vacation friends. So let me ask you a question right now. Who are you vacation friends with? Who would you like to be vacation friends with? And then the most important question of all of them is, are you the person that they want to hang out with for a week? And that's the tough question that you got to ask yourself. My wife and I have friends that when we first started this process, we were like, we would love to be vacation friends with them. Matter of fact, the person we're interviewing tomorrow night is someone that I was like, I would love to be vacation friends with him. Yes, he's wealthy, but he's a really good person too. We had to grow to get to the point to where we are now vacation friends with them. But we have a couple of couples that we would absolutely love to be vacation friends with that we're not yet. And that's because we still have growth to go before we're someone that they want to hang out with for a week. And then is there someone in this room that could be your vacation friend? Once you start categorizing your friends and start understanding the importance and the value of relationships, the goal is to not love anybody less. We love our dinner friends as much as we love our vacation friends. We just understand their place in our life, but it's to constantly be improving and finding more vacation friends. And this applies to every area of your life. It's just not vacations. You can have a workout vacation friend. You can have a financial vacation friend. You can have a religious vacation friend. These are the highest quality people that fill you up and you fill them up. Okay, now we're going to transition to lesson number 7. So how many people have read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad? So put 1 if you've read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Pop it in here for me. If you haven't, it's one of the best books ever written to build a financial stable future for yourself. So one of the things that Rich Dad, Poor Dad, one of the byproducts of it is there's a game called Cash Flow. How many people have played Cash Flow? Put a 2 if you've played this game Cash Flow. Okay, so we've got a few here that have played Cash Flow. All right, you have to go play this game. I have played this game, and this is not an understatement at all. Over 1,000 times. I know every single card. I know every single thing about it. You can go to richdadpoordad.com, which is Robert Kiyosaki's site. And on the upper right-hand corner, it says Play Cash Flow Classic, and you can actually play it online. And don't get frustrated if you lose very bad the first couple of times, because the whole purpose of this game is to teach you stewardship and how to make better financial decisions. But once you figure it out, it becomes an addiction to see how fast you can win your own game. And it's one of the things that's unique about this game is you're trying to win your game. It doesn't matter what anybody else is doing. It's how good are the decisions that you can make. But when you play this game, there's one slice on this circle, and it says, do you want to give 10% to charity? And the first couple of times you play it, you're like, no, I'm broke right now. I'm not No, I'm not doing that. I need my money to live my life, because it's basically it gives you a life, and then you have to learn how to take that life and create success from it. But there's a magic thing that happens when you do. So when you donate to charity, you're given 2 dice instead of 1 dice. So you're able to move through the game quicker. This is lesson number 7, is living in abundance. When you have stewardship of money, you do it so that you can have a life of abundance. One of the high points of our 728 interviews was Daniel and I had the opportunity to interview Sir Richard Branson on Necker Island. We were out there for 4 days. It was absolutely amazing. We were in an intimate group of about 20 people, and we were given the opportunity to do a 728 show with him and interview him for an hour. So we did 45 minutes of interviewing him about his life story, and then they opened it up to this intimate audience for people to ask him questions. And one of the entrepreneurs asked him this question. I think it was the second question that got asked. He said, at what point do you start giving? I mean, at what point does it make sense for you to start being charitable and giving? And Sir Richard gave this answer, and I think that it was one of the most powerful answers, is he said, you know what? I've always gave. My very first business that I had, I opened up a suicide hotline that the business supported that suicide hotline. Nothing has opened more doors for me than my philanthropy. Being grateful for your opportunities is awesome, but living a life in servitude and generosity allows you to play the game with 2 dice. And that's where you see the difference between, and I say there's a difference between being wealthy and being rich. Like right now, I'm wealthy. I want to be rich, but I'm wealthy. I have a very comfortable life. I've built wealth. But I believe wealth, it's the same difference between broke and poor, right? Wealth and rich are 2 totally different things. You can be rich and be a horrible spinster person, or you can be wealthy, which to me equals having a whole life of not just financial security, but being able to build a life where you are the person that you want to become. All right, so let's go back to that graph that I showed you guys a while ago, and let's kind of walk through this graph. And so for most people, they start out here and they stay here. It's the endless learning cycle. It's the person who gets a job, gets good enough to be competent, and then just repeats that competence over and over and over and over and over again. And they never get out of that endless cycle. It's the person who comes to a real estate conference or an event, and they take a ton of notes and they get fired up, but they never make the decision for their own success. So the next part is making the choice. And for this person, 2005 was when he read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And that was when his life changed, because he made the decision that he was going to build wealth. The next one is the struggle. And for 5 years, he worked his tail off and saw virtually no growth at all in his net worth, or nothing really changed for him until he learned to say no, how to say yes, and to turn his failures into successes. Then he had to reinvent himself and become a new person, because the person that you are here is a scarcity mindset person. You are working for survival and to build. And then you come to a point where you can't convince yourself that you're poor, and you have to become a new person. And then he also understood the value of relationship capital. And then getting into a life of abundance in all areas of your life. When I did this graph the first time, I realized that there was a mistake in this graph. And so I actually just changed it for you guys for the first time. But there's one lesson that if you learn it early, changes the whole game. Like the being charitable, that's one. The second is this one. It's the relationship capital. You see, if you are intentional about who you hang out with and finding the right mentors and finding the right people, and relationship capital doesn't mean you necessarily have a relationship with them. It means that you learn from them. It can be a Tony Robbins or a Zig Ziglar that give you the power within yourself to be able to do the things that you are capable of. But there's that expression, you are the sum of the 5 people that you hang around with, or 7 people you hang around with. That is such a true statement. And that was one of the reasons why we had to come up with our 5-minute friends to vacation friends, is because we wanted to be intentional about who we hung out with. So for many of these people, and this plays out in so many areas of your life, we're talking about wealth, but this is also true of your marriage. I mean, if you look at this, making the choice to get married, the struggle you don't expect, saying no to say yes, becoming a new person, all of those things apply in your marriage, in your fitness, with your children, in my Ironman. I mean, I went through this exact same thing many times when I was training for my Ironmans. So for many people, these 7 lessons were levels, 7 levels of success. And for some, they have to go back and relearn these lessons, or they get to a certain point and then they pivot and they got to go through the struggle all over again because they made the choice. I right now was talking to Heather about this. 4 days ago, I got called for fear. I was talking to one of my friends and talking about the opportunities that present themselves. And I've just been kind of hanging on to those for a while. And she said, Aaron, I smell and hear fear in everything you're talking about. And she is, because I haven't been willing to make the choice, because I know the struggle that I'm going to have to go through. So I'm in a place where no matter where you are in your life, you may have to make the choice again. So which one of these are you struggling again with? So let's look at them again. Making the choice, the struggle you don't expect, saying no to say yes, turning failure into success, becoming a new person, relationship capital, and living in abundance. So I would ask you this: where do you live? And I don't mean Austin. I don't mean San Diego or Modesto. Where do you live? Do you live on the surface? Are you living in a place of saving or spending, scarcity or abundance? Are you snuggled up in your warm, cozy sweater of success? Are you willing to take your failures and turn them into the success, or are you living in them like a residence and you're just stuck in your failures like a good home? Or are you allowing those failures to become your reference point? Which one of these 7 lessons are you in right now, or need to be, to become the person that you have the potential to be? 95% of the people in the world that we live in right now are in that continuous learning cycle. You have to earn the courage to chase fear, either buying that first property or making that decision or starting a Not My Money account, whatever that looks like, to step out of your comfort zone. Or are you going to be one of the 5% that goes out and does something and actually lives these 7 lessons of success? I hope you're the latter. So thank you guys very much for listening to me, and I'll stop sharing now and ask any questions or anything of me.
Hey, Aaron, tell us where we can find your podcast.
So it's not a podcast, it's actually a show. So it's a live show that they do that's only live for 48 hours. And the reason for that is that we don't want it to be like a podcast, because a podcast is something where you get the version of you that they want, or you get the version that they want you to see. And we wanted something where they could be very transparent about their losses and their failures. I mean, we have entrepreneurs that have talked about being molested and kidnapped and, all the things that they would never share on a podcast. So it's something that's only available, although we are talking about figuring out a way to get it out to the public, because it is really, really good.
So it's an internal, so it's not something we can access.
It's not something that you can access. No. And actually it's even for people that are in GoBundance, it's only available for 48 hours. Once it goes away, it just is gone. So because of that, we wanted to honor their story, but then also honor the fact that they're telling their real story.
Awesome. I think that was the main. Anybody have any questions? You're welcome to unmute and ask. That was the main question. I think
All right.
everybody's speechless.
Aaron, that was awesome.
It was
That was
amazing.
awesome, Aaron. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Okay, so let me ask this question. How many of you on this call know your net worth? Type in a 1 if you know your net worth. Like, know it.
What the hell is 1, 2, Earl?
That means he kind of knows it.
He knows half of it.
He's like,
half
I
of
got
it.
kind of an idea of what it is. Okay, so that looks like 8 people out of how many are on this call right
About
now?
42.
42 people. Nothing will change your life. And here's the thing. It doesn't matter what the number is. The first time I did my net worth, I was $122,000 in debt. But one of 3 things happens once you know that number. It either stays the same, which means you're living the exact same life that you've led. It gets worse, which means you're making worse decisions, or it gets better. And a $50 improvement. I'm reading a book called The Gap and the Gain right now by Dr. Benjamin Hardy and Dan, can't remember his last name. But what they talk about is that most of us live our lives in the gap. I want to lose 10 pounds and I've lost 2. I suck because I still have 8 more pounds to lose. Whereas the reality is if you live at and do your goals from a reference point, it's a win when you've lost 2 pounds. That is a huge amount of success for you to build on instead of living in that gap. And when you talk about money and you talk about net worth, you know, when you talk to me, and Heather can attest to this, Kathy can attest to this. I mean, there's a few people I've had conversations with. I don't care what the number is because, and people who have a good relationship with money understand that it is just a pawn in the game, the chess game of life. It's one of our pawns. And so wherever you are is just the result of the decisions you've made up to that point. I would encourage every single one of you to take a list, add up everything you own. And I mean, the first time it's your furniture, it's your TV, it's your computer, it's your bike, it's your car, it's your house, every single thing that you own and the real market value of it. So there's no reason to cheat yourself or kid yourself. And then those are your assets. So you add all of those up and then you take what you owe, car payment, credit card debt, home mortgage, you know, all of those things, and you put those in another one, and then you subtract one from the other. And if it's a negative, you have a negative net worth, and it is what it is. If it's a positive of $5,000, that's a positive of $5,000. Your goal now is to make it 5,500. If you're a negative 10,000, your goal is to make it $9,900. But once you see that number, you now have a place that you can track and play the game. Money is, you know, there's 3 things people don't talk about when they go out to dinner. You know, what are the 3 things people don't talk about when they go out to dinner?
Politics, religion.
Politics, religion. Well, there's 4 then. Politics, religion, sex, and money. Those 4 things are taboo, right? And yet money is the one thing that money's just a thing. It's an elephant under the carpet because people have this greater than or less than viewpoint. Like, oh, they're worth $1 million. They're better than I. They're not. They just have made different financial decisions. You may be a master in the spiritual world and a 0 in finances, and they may be a master in finances and a 0 in spirituality. And you guys can have something that you can help each other with. David Oz, the guy that I'm interviewing next week, or 2 days from now, Thursday night, when I met him, he was worth $60 million. I can never have a conversation with, I mean, I can have conversations with him about money, him giving me advice about money, but he was a new dad. And I've got 2 really good boys. Our relationship is based on him having no freaking idea what to do with kids because he led a jacked up life in a military school. And we created this relationship because we both bring value to the table. And he gives me financial advice and has helped me a ton. I've helped him with his son. And his relationship with his family is totally different because of my influence in him. Money is just a piece of the pie, but if you don't talk about it, you don't know who can help you. Every single person on this call have wealthy people who, if you are willing to have the conversation, will pour themselves into you to help you build wealth. And I know because, I mean, Heather, Kathy, I mean, there's a number of people that I've had conversations with about money. And am I saying the truth, Kathy? Once you get over the obstacle of talking about money, your clients want to talk about it, that you are one of their biggest financial pieces of their lives. When you say, hey, do you know your net worth? Where do you have your money? How much do you have in stocks? How much do you have in savings? They're going to answer those questions. And you'd be surprised at how open they are and want to have those conversations. Sorry, I got up on my pulpit a little bit. Does anybody have any other questions about that? Because when it comes to money, I can talk forever, but I know we're getting at time.
Quick question. Do you have like an app or a program or something you recommend to track your net worth?
You know, I've found now that almost every big bank has something that does that, but I use Personal Capital, and it's called something else now. But if you look up Personal Capital, it'll come up. It syncs with your bank accounts. You can put all of your, you know, a lot of people use Mint, but as your wealth grows or as you become more complicated, Personal Capital is actually set up by a financial institution. It's free, but they'll call you every so often and want to hit you up for stuff. But you can put your properties and then sync it with your banks to where it shows the debt. You can adjust the value of your properties. I have my net worth tracked from December of 2014 all the way through to today, virtually to the dollar for that whole time. And I check my net worth all the time too. That's something that you guys should do also. Check your net worth once a month, put something together, revisit it so that it becomes a priority in your life.
Thank you. I see that Kat just put a link in the chat for that too.
Thank you, Kat.
Well, I just want to read Shanna's story wrote, I figured mine out when we did the goal setting and it was negative, huge wake up call. I got focused and now it's positive and growing. Unless you are looking at it, unless you take the time to do that, you'll stay in the negative. So, I mean, I think it's a really good, I mean, even for my own self, again, like that conversation with Aaron that changed my life, just being like, I really need to look at this because I want it to grow. I mean, most of us here, I think, are all in real estate or other jobs where we have to create our own retirement. And the only way to do that is to be really conscientious about your money. So. And
I see a question from Anijay. Richest Man in Babylon is another really great book. And then Think and Grow Rich is kind of dry, but it's one of the classics. You know, Rich Dad Poor Dad, Richest Man in Babylon, Think and Grow Rich, and How to Win Friends and Influence People are probably the four most influential books for personal growth and financial growth that have been written in the last 100 years. And most of them are from the 30s, other than Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Awesome.
Anyone else?
Aaron, I have a question for you.
Sure.
Ed Daniels.
Hey, Ed.
Hey, I appreciate your time again, teaching us all about this stuff. But I would say I'm a mix between the saver and the spender, in that I save the money to spend it all on investments. And so I'd like to joke with my wife that we don't have a wealth problem. We have a cash flow issue. But
I know that problem.
Yeah, but the question I had for you was that, do you think there's a number out there that would be the point where you have the goal to get to before you have enough to actually have it grow exponentially, like that bar graph that you have? That
in my experience, it's once you get to like $10 million is where you really start seeing that $8 to $10 million is the place where you end up having enough money to where pretty much anytime an opportunity comes up, you're able to take that money and put that money somewhere. And then you also, all of those past investments that you have start rolling over. And so what we've seen is that $8 to $10 million mark is where you really start seeing that exponential growth for most of these people, most of the guys. So how soon will you be there, Ed?
Not there yet.
See.
So Katie McBride did have a question. How often do you recommend we update it if we don't have a program attached to a bank?
Well, first of all, I tell you to get, I mean, it's too easy to set up. I mean, you can probably get it set up in in an hour to where it syncs with your bank and then all your mortgage and all that kind of stuff. I would review it way more often, Katie, than once a year with a financial planner. I don't as often anymore, but I would look at it every couple of weeks just to keep it in front of me. It was just a pop-up. I would just pop on and take a look at it. And then, you know, I would see my mortgage pay down, which pays down which adds to your net worth, all of those kinds of things. I would say at minimum once a quarter. And if you can get into the habit of doing it more often, it does nothing but, you know, what you focus on expands is a Keller Williams bold expression. What you focus on expands. And the same thing is true with wealth and money, is what you focus on expands, because money isn't the end all be all, but it just makes all the other areas of your life easier when you do have it. I mean, that's just the world that we live in right now.
Thank you very much. I actually do once a year with my trainer and then once a year with my coach.
And both of those, Katie, my only perspective on that is both of those you're doing it with somebody. We're trying to change our mindset here. And the way that you do that is you start creating habits for yourself. So when you say, okay, it's January, I've got to meet with my financial planner and look it over, that's an outside influence on you that's bringing that net worth conversation in. And the goal is that you start making that part of your internal dialogue and your tracking system so that you start making those changes inside yourself too. Do I use a money manager?
Thank you
Do I
very
manage
much.
my own investments? I do have some stocks. I'm in real estate, so the majority of my wealth is in real estate. And then I've been invested in some bonds and commercial and that kind of stuff. But most of my properties are owned locally. And so my team just manages them for me. So, all right. Thank you, Heather.
Hey, thanks everybody for coming. Erin, thank you. That was amazing.
Thank you, guys.
No spending money, y'all.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Erin.
Thanks.
You're so
Appreciate
welcome.
you. Stop recording.
I thought when you got on it, I was listening.